Let me tell you a story, okay? It was August of 2023, and or maybe it was July, and I saw Trump at a Turning Point event. This is before we kind of like, I don't know, we'd made up years ago, but this one we had the first like real glad hand and chance to see each other, and it was a very nice exchange. And I spoke with his team behind the scenes, and we talked about the lawfare that he was facing. And the team made clear to me the one of all the criminal trials that he was facing, the thing that really had Trump stressed because it was so unfair and threatened his business to its core was this ridiculous possible indictment by Letitia James, not indictment, but civil suit that threatened to bankrupt him. And indeed, she got a hard partisan judge. She's a hard partisan, the New York State Attorney General, who ran for office promising to, quote, get Trump. And then she got a hard partisan judge, this lunatic Judge Engoron. And it was a judge trial. He had no right to a jury on it. And it didn't go his way. So this one was very important to Donald Trump. And not surprisingly, this hard partisan judge threw the book at him and entered a nearly $500 million judgment against him. It is now over $500 million with the interest that's accrued. And today it was thrown out. It's amazing. He's had to live under this for years now, not just Donald Trump, but Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, both of whom have been pulled into this and harassed by this rabid partisan posing as an objective attorney general. It's not so fun now, is it, Tish? Now that you're on the receiving end of lawfare. Unlike Trump, however, you actually appear to have broken the law. Yeah, you deny it. Well, you'll get your day in court, too. We'll see how that plays out. She's lost completely. They've left in place some minor injunctive relief against the Trump organization. None of it's really going to matter that much because, let's face it, the Trumps are busy doing something else for the next couple of years. And the injunctive relief that she entered against, let's say, like the Suns, was basically like, you can't run this business for the next 2 years. I think they'll be fine. They actually have some other things they can do. But this was a resounding victory for Donald Trump. The entire monetary judgment has been vacated. It's been wiped out. This is a court of Democrats. There is only one Republican appointed judge. And Republican in New York parlance basically means like a late day Mitt Romney type. So for Trump to get the support of this full court is really shocking. The court's presiding judge writing that the penalty is, quote, an excessive fine that violates the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution, which is the amendment that prohibits cruel and unusual punishments. Two other judges writing that there should be a new trial entirely, another saying the whole case should never have been allowed, and Tish James should not have brought this to begin with. She's notoriously anti-Trump, completely unethically. She ran for attorney general on the promise that she would get Donald Trump. She salivated thereafter at the prospect of seizing his buildings throughout New York. Guess what, Tish? It's not going to happen now. There is zero chance the New York State Court of Appeals, which is the highest court in New York State, is going to overturn this well-founded decision by the First Department. And so she's toast. It's done. We're officially awaiting her response to her massive kick in the ass. We really look forward to that, and we'll bring it to you when we get it. We haven't heard from the president yet either. We heard from Eric Trump, which I'll get to in a second. But joining me now to unpack all of this and what it means is Phil Holloway. He's contributor to MK True Crime. That's our new true crime podcast. We launch it twice a week, and it's got all your Kelly's Court favorites, including Phil. Go ahead and download that show right now. Just search MK True Crime in the podcast search bar, and on YouTube, too. You can follow it. You can get Phil and our other pals doing great legal analysis on all the hot legal cases. They are going to have a lot with this one, along with Will Chamberlain, who's senior counsel at the Article 3 Project. That's, of course, Mike Davis's organization, and they do great work. Guys, welcome back. What a victory, Phil, for the sitting president.
Well, it is a victory. And, we've talked about this going on, I don't know how many years now. The lawfare that was waged against Donald Trump, which is all rooted in hard partisanship, as you pointed out. Look, it's all crumbling, Megyn, piece by piece by piece. We saw, Fani Willis is booted off the RICO case, and now we have Tish James, and she's got her massive judgment, which really was the thing that she wanted, because this was effectively the death penalty if it was enforced, perhaps against the Trump organization. Interestingly enough, it was grounded in the Eighth Amendment, which we normally see in criminal cases. It's not that often you see that in a civil case because it prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. And under the circumstances, a Democrat Court of Appeals says this is cruel and unusual. It starts out with, of course, a case based on nothing. The banks were not defrauded. There were no actual injuries. There were no money damages that were incurred by any party in this case. This was pure partisan politics. And the appeals court has said, look, this is just doesn't wash. We don't do this. We can't punish somebody in this way. It doesn't fit the allegations. And I do think before all is said and done, that the appeals process will ultimately end this case in its entirety. But for now, this was a huge victory, and I think it's going to last.
I mean, Will, this was such a cockamamie, convoluted civil case against him in the first place, with a statute that had never been used like this, saying, well, you undervalued your assets when you filed your taxes, and then you overvalued them when you wanted to get loans on favorable terms dealing with sophisticated banks, and therefore you're a fraudster. Meanwhile, it's like everyone tries to undervalue their assets when they're dealing with the IRS. And when trying to get a favorable loan with a bank, sure, you try to get the most favorable interpretation of what you own. But he was dealing with Deutsche Bank. He was not dealing with my imaginary viewer, Madge, who's in Iowa and works the farm all day and does not go over spreadsheets and corporate disclosure statements.
Correct. And that goes right to the intent to deceive, which is necessary in any fraud case. Like, they're not trying to deceive Deutsche Bank. They expect Deutsche Bank will go down, their statements of financial condition and be very, very careful and look very carefully at all their claims, all their attestations. So it was a really preposterous case from the outset. And I think, we remember one of the obvious bizarre valuations was to suggest that Mar-a-Lago was worth something like $20 million. And Tish James suggested that and said that all of Trump's claims that it was worth $500 million or more were ridiculous. Well, no, actually saying that if you've ever been to Mar-a-Lago or you're familiar with the geography of Palm Beach, it's a massive property in one of the most expensive areas for real estate in the entire world. It's a totally unique property. $20 million would be trivial to purchase it. And yet Tish James's entire theory of the case was that by saying it was worth $20 million when applying for a loan to Deutsche Bank, that the Trump organization defrauded Deutsche Bank, an absurd claim on its face.
And Deutsche Bank didn't complain. That was one of the ironies of this whole case, Phil, is that the banks actually came in and said, no, absolutely no harm done. We're good. He repaid the loans in full, paid the interest. We're really pleased, and we love being in business with him. And still, Tish James was in there saying, a fraud has been committed. The people of New York were defrauded. She never adequately explained why, but she had something in her back pocket. And that was an even more hard partisan judge, Engoron, who clearly wanted to be a Democratic star.
Yeah, Tish James knows something about mortgage fraud, but she knows about it maybe in a different context. She, I think, defrauded the court when she made these crazy claims about the value of these properties. At least in the business documents, which is standard, there's disclaimers saying, look, do your due diligence, lender, because, we're doing this in good faith, but we want you to do your due diligence and not rely exclusively on our evaluations. And that's how business is done. And she completely ignored that. She made false claims to the court about the actual value of things like Mar-a-Lago, as Will pointed out. And so she should be disbarred. This case should be thrown out. She should be prohibited from ever bringing it back to life. And, look, I mean, we can talk about her own mortgage fraud problems if you want to, but she really ought to be focusing on that and focusing less on this particular thing, because she has actually committed mortgage fraud. She has actually benefited financially by making false statements in mortgage loan applications. Donald Trump wasn't saying that these are some kind of primary residence for which he should get lower interest rates. She did that. She needs to be the one held accountable. The lawfare that was waged against Donald Trump was all rooted in partisanship. And that's the fundamental flaw in all of this. And that's why we're seeing it crumble piece by piece.
Yes, those are the allegations against her. She denies them. We'll see whether she gets away with that or not, because she's got a couple of legal problems on her hands with respect to her New York properties, with respect to her property down south, and the representations she made in order to get more favorable mortgage rates on her loans, something she claims she's horrified by when Donald Trump is doing it. When Donald Trump is applying for loans and allegedly misstates the value of the assets, she's horrified by it. It's fraud. He has to be punished, that no one is above the law. When Tish James allegedly does it, totally different story. Now she's complaining about lawfare and retribution. Okay, literally nobody feels sorry for you. This was Tish James as she campaigned. It was so inappropriate. Hannity put together this montage. We often show it. It was perfectly done. SOP 50.
I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president when our fundamental rights are at stake. I believe that the president of these United States can be indicted for criminal offenses.
Will you sue him for us?
Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the He's going to know my name personally.
That man in the White House who can't go a day without threatening our fundamental rights.
Yes, we need to focus on Donald Trump and his abuses. We need to follow his money. We need to find out where he's laundered money. We need to find out whether or not he's engaged in conspiracy. It's important that everyone understand that the days of Donald Trump are coming to an end.
I look forward to going into the office of Attorney General every day, suing him, defending your rights, and then going home.
So inappropriate. So what do we think the effect of the sparring between President Donald Trump and the Fed is going to be? Can the Fed take the right action at the right time? Do we trust in that? Or are we going to be looking at a potential economic slowdown as they slow roll any of their moves as they worry about his tariffs? And what exactly does all of this mean for your savings? You might want to consider diversifying right about now with gold through Birch Gold Group. For decades, gold has been viewed as a safe haven in times of economic stagnation, global uncertainty, and high inflation. And Birch Gold makes it incredibly easy for you to diversify some of your savings into gold. If you have an IRA or old 401k, you can convert that into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or just buy some gold to keep it in your safe. First, get educated. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. Just text MK to the number 989898. Again, text MK to 989898, and you'll start the process of just getting the 411 on what it means to own gold. Consider diversifying a portion of your savings into gold. So if the Fed cannot stay ahead of the curve for the country, at least you can stay ahead of the curve for yourself. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.